All right, y'all. Welcome to episode 2 of Life Uncorked with Marian. I'm your host, Marian, and today we have a great guest, Majak Wenyin. So, thank you so much for joining me. I feel like I was just saying before we started, I feel like it's been a little minute since I've actually interviewed because life has been lifing. But I really appreciate you making the time, and I'm super excited. I have so many things that I want to go over with you. So don't be nervous. It's just an authentic conversation. But again, just a lot of bases I want to cover and just things I want to talk about. So I always like to start this off with toasting to my guests. And I know you got your little drink.
I got some red wine.
Yes. So before we start, let me go ahead and introduce you, okay? So when I was going over just the things that you've done, I was honestly blown away. It's amazing, and I'm just really excited to talk about all of it. So you are founder and director of So Elite Basketball. For those who don't know, this is a South Sudanese basketball organization dedicated to and focused on elite training and development for aspiring South Sudanese basketball players, teaching them the fundamental skills of basketball and so much more, helping them to earn college opportunities through basketball with locations in Juba, South Sudan, Nebraska, New Hampshire, as well as a women's division in Australia, where the goal is to train and empower young South Sudanese girls and women through sports, overall helping more than 100 student athletes earn full ride scholarships to college. And I'm sure by now it's much more than that. You also work with Ross Leaders in the athletic department of that organization. Ross Leaders stands for Republic of South Sudan Leaders, which is a youth-focused nonprofit group based in the U.S., which focuses on mentoring young people, promoting education and leadership skills, supporting cultural identity within the South Sudanese community, and encouraging wellness and personal growth, with locations in Omaha, Nebraska, Lincoln, Nebraska, Manchester, New Hampshire, Dallas, Texas, and Iowa. And if I left any locations out, let me know. Recruiter, director, and basketball coach at Bella Vista Prep, which is a top-ranked private college preparatory school in Phoenix, Arizona, that is especially known for combining academics with elite basketball development. And then, lastly, because there's so much here, one of the founders of Rise Management, a comprehensive talent agency that empowers clients to thrive in both the sports and entertainment industry by representing players, managing careers, branding, marketing, and off-court opportunities, while also helping athletes transition from high school or prep school to college and then onto the professional level, such as the NBA or overseas. Another one of the founders being Wenyin Gabriel, a well-known South Sudanese basketball player who is an Olympian and has also played both in the NBA and internationally. Woo! Okay. So thank you.
I didn't even know that many things. So
Yeah, I know. It's crazy when you're doing stuff. It's like, oh my gosh, I've done all that. But no, you definitely have done so much, and you should be just so proud of yourself. So here's to you, Majak. We got to cheers virtually. So let's get started. For those who don't know me, I have a Q&A coming out that's going to give people a little more of an idea of, what I'm doing with my podcast, who I am. But I was in the journalism program before communication. So journalism, I really loved it. I loved covering stories on people. I love talking to people. So this is one of the things that I love to do. But I did a lot of writing. So I switched to communications because I love talking to people. This is what I love. So for those who don't know, I like to start at the beginning with everybody, and then I kind of just move on into everything else. But again, it's organic, just relax. I just want to start with you personally, like your personal upbringing, who you are, and then we'll move on into everything that you've done. Okay?
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
So
So, to start, I know that you are a South Sudanese refugee. So let me let you explain it, because I was about to say what it is, but for those who don't know, you can tell them, what is a South Sudanese refugee?
yeah, so I came to the U.S. as a refugee with my family back in 2000. So obviously, and there was a lot of war in Sudan at that one time. At that point, Sudan was one country. We just got our independence in 2011. So now it's divided to Sudan and South Sudan. But basically, a refugee was we were caught up in war, and basically we got brought to the U.S. Um, and which was a blessing for me and my family because there was a lot of people at the time that are from the country that were trying to get out. So we were fortunate, but I've been here for about going on to 26 years now. I'm obviously a U.S. citizen now, but that's kind of my background, how I got here as a refugee.
Yeah, and I can add to that just what I have here listed in my notes. So, you came to the States at 6 years old. And again, for just like Majak just said, South Sudanese refugee is someone who fled South Sudan due to the South Sudanese Civil War, which broke out in December of 2013 and lasted for 7 years. With over 2.4 million refugees, this is one of Africa's largest refugee crises. Um, and you did state, after coming here to the States at 6 years old, you grew up in Manchester, New Hampshire, with your mom and four other siblings.
Yeah, me, my mom, and four other siblings.
Yeah. And you're the youngest of all your siblings, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
There's
you're the
six.
baby.
There's six of us total, but my oldest sister, she was in Kenya at the time when we came here, so she didn't come here with us.
Yes,
But
you
it's
did
three
say.
boys, three girls. I'm the youngest one out of everybody.
Okay, okay. So you did, I do remember you saying too, one of your sisters had to stay behind.
Yeah,
So I want to ask you about that too. So one of the things that you weren't shy about saying is that you grew up in the projects of Manchester. You mentioned that there were a lot of Haitians and Jamaicans in your community. What was that like growing up in the projects of Manchester?
I mean, Manchester it's a cool. It's a small city. It's a
Mm-hmm.
cooler city, but I would say they're pretty diverse. So, like growing up, I had friends from all over the place. Obviously, African. So there was a lot of Africans in the area too, from West Africa, East Africa. I had friends that were Jamaicans, Haitian. So it's very diverse, which I think was a blessing for me because I got to see different cultures and different backgrounds. So as I grew older, I kind of understood how to fit in different rooms around
Mm-hmm.
different people. But I mean, it was good. Like I said, I came here. I was actually I think 7 or 8 when I came to the U.S. But I lived in the projects my whole life, basically from when I was a kid till I graduated high school. But it was a good experience. Obviously, it has its ups and its downs, its struggles. But as a kid, you don't really recognize the struggle as much. You're kind of just living day to day. So I feel like it was. I enjoyed it. It was a good childhood. I enjoyed everything that came with it. I wouldn't change the journey if I could do it all over again for sure.
Okay, so you officially got to the States when you were 7 years
Yeah, I
old?
think I was seven or eight,
Seven,
seven turning 8, I think.
7 or 8.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. All right. And I do remember you saying too that you mentioned your mother came in her late 20s or early 30s.
Mm. Yeah, she's
Yeah,
probably I think in her 30s at the time.
in her early 30s.
Yeah. So it was
Okay.
her and just me and my siblings. So I think it was rough for her. Obviously, you don't recognize it as a kid, but looking back at it now, I can't
Mhm.
imagine. I'm 32, so I can't imagine me in my 30s going to another country where I don't know the culture or I don't know the language, and I have 5 other kids with me and trying to figure it out. But definitely, kudos to them. She did an amazing job getting us through everything and figuring everything out.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that, and I know you said that your mom had passed, and I'm so sorry about that in 2023. That's
Yeah.
really tough, so I can't even imagine. Um, but I know when we had talked, you had said that you all used to walk everywhere, and it
Yeah.
gets really. Oh, go ahead.
No, I saying yeah. When we first got here, like you know, we didn't there wasn't no access to a lot of things. So I
Mhm.
think we were just kind of getting how we can. But I remember when I was a kid, walking to like different places, whether it was the grocery store, whether it's to another
Yeah.
family's house. We didn't really have access to a vehicle. And one thing in Manchester is super cold. Like we have like severe winters, and at the time I didn't really understand. But like as an adult, kind of looking back at it, I don't know how she got through all that at
That
the
was
time.
literally my exact question, because you had mentioned that it gets really cold there, and that you can remember going to the grocery store with her at times, like in a cart. She would have you like in a shopping cart, you said?
Yeah, she would put me in the shopping cart and
And
like
yeah,
put blankets around me, and
yeah.
she'd push the cart all the way to the store. And the store's probably about maybe 3 miles away. So
Mhm.
3 4 miles away, she'd get in the cart, push it down there, and then we'd get back. So
Okay. And so that's what I was going to mention, just like looking back on it now, as an adult, how much of an impact did that have on you, like after you realized what your mom had done, like literally leaving her home country of South Sudan and then coming all the way here to the States with your siblings for a better opportunity? Like as an adult, now that you look back on that, I mean, that was pretty awesome. So how much of an impact would you say that had on you once you
it
grew up
definitely
and
had a
realized what she had done?
it definitely had a huge impact on me. I think she's definitely the reason why I've always tried to like try to succeed in anything I do. Obviously, as a kid, you see it, but you don't understand the severity of the struggles that are actually going on around you. But now that I'm older, looking back at it, like we had it super tough, she had it super tough, and like she found a way. But even as a kid, I kind of understood it to a point because I remember even I had dreams of like going to NBA when I was young, and part of that dream was because I wanted to take my mom out of the struggle she was in and kind of give her better opportunities and provide better things for her. So that was kind of what I used as fuel as a kid to like try to be successful in everything I do. So definitely looking back at it, like I understood it, but looking back as an adult is definitely in hindsight is a complete different understanding.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like, I mean, just being a woman myself, I can't even, like, kudos to her. Can't even imagine like leaving a place like that where I'm familiar with all my kids, and then just packing up. And like she was a superhero for sure for doing that. Um, and I wanted to touch on too, like when you mentioned one of your sisters had to stay behind. I know that like a lot of South Sudanese refugees ended up separated from their families when coming to the States because of like displacement, war, and then like just how the resettlement processes work. How hard was that? Um, what is something that you think people should know about like that process for people who don't know?
It's definitely tough because when you're going through the application of being a refugee trying to flee to another country,
Mhm.
there's like certain rules that are within it. So like after a certain age, your child can't travel with you. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's like once they're an adult or something like that. I'm not exactly sure, but a lot of families get separated because of that. Because certain kids can't come, or sometimes they'll accept certain people in the family and not accept the others. So that happens very often for me. Um, my sister left with my dad to Kenya when basically I was like a newborn at the time.
Mhm.
So couldn't really recall a relationship with her or my dad to really like feel like I was missing out on them or missing them. But I'm
Mhm.
pretty sure like my older siblings, they kind of felt it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure that was tough too, just growing up like without your dad. And I know that's something that a lot of kids tend to go through. Did that have any type of impact on you as well? Or, I mean, it sounds like your mom was just a all around superhero, but you know.
Yeah, I definitely think it has an impact. I don't think not that I can like recall it or recognize it, but I think anytime you're raised in a single parent household, I think there's
Yeah.
a balance that's needed that a kid is missing. So it definitely impacted me and influenced me in certain ways that I might not understand. But I didn't really feel it as much because I didn't really know my dad or he wasn't really around when I was born for me to
Mhm.
feel it. And then my mom did such an amazing job of balancing it out and like being there for me all the time that I never felt the emptiness.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, okay, let's talk about, just school and kind of getting into that. I know after high school, you went to Brown Mackey, which is a junior college in Salina, Kansas.
Mhm.
And you said around this time you had injured your groin. Was that in high school?
Yeah,
I
I
think you
injured
said,
my groin my junior year in high school, and then
yeah.
it kind of
Okay.
like built up over time.
Okay. Okay. And so after Brown Mackey, you then transferred to Howard your junior year, right? And you were studying political science.
Hmm.
What made you want to get into political science?
I've always been into politics since I was a kid. Um,
Hmm.
I have an uncle who works in South Sudan as a politician, and he's been involved in politics since I was a kid. So kind of just being, he's my mom's brother, so kind of just being around him and being around my other family members that were my mom's siblings that were also involved in politics. Like I've kind of since I was a kid, I always knew I wanted to get into politics, and then once I got into it, I didn't love it as much as I thought I would.
Yeah, but before you were in it, you were like, I'm gonna be the next president. That's what you were on.
I
Just
definitely thought I was going to be the next president. I used to tell everyone that when I was a kid. I for sure
yeah,
thought I was going to be the next president.
yeah. Okay, so well, I do know because we talked about it. Um, like you just stated, once you got into politics, your focus had kind of shifted, right?
Mm,
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you realized that you didn't have that same love for politics that you had for basketball, right?
yeah, for
And
sure.
so from there, you started thinking about like different ways that you can fit into the basketball space, right?
Hmm.
Um, and so, at what point did you realize that I don't want to do politics anymore? Like, what was it that made you have that shift of focus? Because I know shortly after you founded So Elite, and we're going to talk about that. But when did you have that realization, like politics is not for me? I'm going to tap back into basketball. When did that happen for you?
It was definitely after my junior year in college. I was doing a internship with the Obama administration and the Black Caucus Foundation at the time at
Wow.
Howard. So while doing that, I enjoyed it. Like I built a lot of connections, got to learn a lot of things. But as I started getting deeper in it, I really didn't like it as I was kind of like falling out of love for it. My passion for it was kind of like fading.
Hmm.
And once I realized that, I kind of just couldn't really picture myself doing something that I didn't love doing because my whole life basketball was my main focus and I loved it. So it never felt like I was kind of chasing anything. I was kind of always living in the moment. So I wanted that feeling again of like being an adult working in the field that I have love for.
Yeah, and I feel like that's something that's not talked about enough too, because obviously, like a lot of athletes, when they start out in their sport, the dream is like to make it to the professional level, right? But then
Mm,
if things don't go that way, then it's kind of like even though you might not have made it professionally, there's still other ways to be involved in basketball, right? And
mm,
so I think that's something that should be talked about more, because it can be tough when you work so hard to like reach a certain level, and then if things aren't going your way, then it's like, okay, what am I going to do next? I don't want to settle. But again, you found a way to still be involved in basketball, and I'm sure working with these kids also feeds that dream that you had in basketball. So yeah, I feel like that's really not like talked about enough, because making the NBA is tough,
nah,
making
for
it
sure.
professionally, but there's still other ways to like live out your dream in basketball. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so well, I definitely want to move into So Elite, because after you realized that, politics wasn't what you wanted to do, you founded So Elite, right?
Yeah.
Um, and you founded, what year did you found So Elite?
It was like 20, I want to say around 2017.
2017. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so for those who don't know, let's go into So Elite here. So, and I had it in my notes. I shouldn't have asked you because I already had it right here. Okay. So you founded So Elite, with the goal of mentoring young players from South Sudanese communities and helping them to succeed both academically and athletically. And you had said that this was your first step into the basketball space as a trainer. What was that like? You know?
It was cool. So I had a mentor coming up when I was growing up in Manchester. His name is Sudi Let. So when I played basketball, he was my basketball coach, but he also mentored us. But he taught us a lot when it came to basketball and off the court stuff, like just being an adult, growing up, just things about career, stuff like that, just life in general. So I knew, like getting older, I wanted to kind of impact kids the same way he impacted me, and that's kind of where Soul Elite came from. So I started it to train kids, but I didn't want it to just be a basketball avenue. I also wanted to be an avenue to like teach kids how to grow into an adult and help them get into college and life after college and mentorship and all that. So that's kind of like where it's come from.
Yeah. Why did you feel that it was necessary to create a program like this for players from South Sudan?
Because come from like in Manchester, like there's not a lot of resources around.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew like for me, I was fortunate like growing up in my circle, like I felt like I kind of made it further than most of my peers at the time because people get caught up in stuff, whether it's
Yeah.
drugs, whether it's like going to jail,
Yeah.
and all different types of stuff. So I knew that there were kids that were coming up after me that needed that same type of mentorship to help guide them through life. And so that was kind of like the importance of why I wanted to start Solely was to kind of give back to the youth and give them some type of mentorship and guidance.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. And I know for you, like, even though you said you really didn't feel the impact of like not having your dad, just coming from a single parent household, that's amazing that, you were able to just still pour into them like that. So I'm sure you can still kind of relate a little bit, to that.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, So in the program, you focus on player development, right? Academic support and mentorship, college exposure, recruiting help, and the players also compete in AAU basketball tournaments, right?
Mhm.
Um, what type of mentor are you when it comes to players that decide to join the program? Because I have to say, I was watching. It was on YouTube. It was like an all access video for So Elite. And there was a scene where you were like, why did we stop? And you were like, y'all were walking. You were like, for those who know me, why did we stop? Like you seem, you know, like you don't play around in a way. I'm sure you love them dearly, but you also seem like you mean business. And so, like, for anyone that is looking to join the program, what type of mentor are they getting in you?
I'm definitely a tough love type of person.
Mm-hmm.
I think I grew up on tough love, so I'm very hard on all my kids. But I also try to balance it out because they know that I want them to succeed, and they all have big goals and big dreams, or they wouldn't be here. And when
Right.
you have big goals and big dreams, you got to do a lot of things that most people aren't willing to do, and you have to get out of your comfort zone. So I'm here to really like get them out of their comfort zone, but help them expand their comfort zone. So it gets tough. It's not easy, but at the end of the day, I think they know like it's for the better good, so they understand and they reciprocate everything I say pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like honestly, when it comes to coaching and training, that's the best way to be. It really is. Cause I'll even give you a little backstory with me. Like, I ran track in high school and played basketball and ran track in middle school. And I had a track coach in middle school, Mr. Brown. I don't know where Mr. Brown is right now, but if he's out there watching this, he used to have us run up hills. Our track set up on a hill, and it used to aggravate my allergies because it was literally surrounded by a bunch of grass and all of that. But it was a very steep hill, and I remember he used to cuss at us. That was probably a little extreme, but ultimately, it was tough love. Like some of the girls would literally be like trying to make up excuses like I just want to go home, what I need to say. But as we obviously got older, looking back on it now, it really helped us. It made us better. And I even still feel some of the effects of it today. Like I feel like if you've ever been an athlete or ever played a sport, like it's kind of like muscle memory. Like
Yeah.
I just really feel like your body, it helps you to stay in shape like all throughout your life. Like you kind of form like a really athletic build. I don't know. I still feel like maybe it's just in my head. I don't know. But I still feel like I feel the effects of just how hard he pushed us, not only physically, but just mentally today. So that's one of the reasons why I love sports. So yeah, that's good to know for anyone that's looking to join the program. Um, Obviously, the program has strong roots in the South Sudanese community, and one of the key missions of the program is to give opportunities to underrepresented players and to help them navigate the U.S. basketball and college system, right? Why is it so important for South Sudanese players or like any international player to understand like how the U.S. basketball and college system works? 'Cause I feel like
Uh,
that's important.
I definitely think it's important because when you're dealing with the basketball space, there's a lot of behind the scene things that most people don't see and most people
Hmm.
don't understand. So like unless you're in it, you don't really know what's going on. And I think with international athletes, most of the time our parents don't know what's going like what basketball is, what the culture of basketball, most sports are. They kind of just understand the education and academic aspect of it. So when you're going through things like the recruiting process, and or even if you're trying to go to NBA and you're going through the draft process, and like it's hard if your parents don't understand it. So I think it's important that you have someone around you that does understand it, or even if you have the proper education yourself to understand it, then you can at least navigate through it.
For those who dropped off, basically the question was, why is it so important for South Sudanese players or any international player to understand how the U.S. basketball and college system works? And then you were kind of explaining like why that's important. But can you talk a little bit about some of the things that like might make it hard for people to understand? Like what are some of those challenges when it comes to like the US basketball college system? I mean, from my understanding, it can be very complicated. Like, if you could just throw, like, what's one thing out there that can make it a little difficult for a player who's like, say, just trying to go at it on their own without having anyone to help them?
I think one of the main things would be exposure,
Mm-hmm.
getting the proper exposure. Sometimes, if you're in a small city or a small state where there's not a lot of attention on athletes, you can kind of go under the radar. So just having someone to kind of guide you to the right platform so you kind of showcase yourself and are able to be seen by different type of scouts can be very helpful.
Yeah, I feel like exposure is like a major one because if you don't have exposure, then it's like, how do you really get anywhere? I mean, I know players have done it, but I feel like that makes it really challenging. But that's one of the things that they get with your program, which is awesome. Um, and I know one of the things that you aim to do is build like a supportive family-like culture in this program at So Elite. Um, why is that so important to you? And how does that foster in the development of your players? Because, like I said, even when watching the video and the intro of that video with and for those who want to watch it, it's on YouTube. It's an all access video into like So Elite. And you had literally right in the beginning of the video, you had paired them with people that they didn't know. And you had said one of the things that, you wanted to do was give them a chance to get to know each other. Some of them might have wanted to be paired with their friends, but you're like, trying to really build like that family like culture within the program.
Mm.
So how does that foster in the development of the players?
I think it's important to just have social skills and networking skills just for life in
Mhm.
general and life
Yeah.
after basketball and outside of basketball. So that's one thing that we try to focus on their development as they're playing basketball is getting them to socialize with other peers, getting them to understand like part of their network needs to grow because you never know what someone else is going to be. So you might be with a random person at the time that you're playing basketball, that's a basketball player, but in the near future, he might be the next lawyer or the next big doctor or the next big whatever. You never know. So it's important to just have that people skills to where you're building relationships and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And it's tough too, I'm sure. Just coming to the States from another place and just getting to know people. I mean, I'm sure the program also helps with that, right? Allowing the kids to just kind of build connections with other people,
Hmm.
So I think that's great. And so I kind of want to go into Ross leaders because that's really like the next thing. Because I also do remember hearing you mention that it's not just about basketball. Like education is very important. And I know you went to Howard, and I got to throw in there HU.
You know.
For those who don't know, if you go to Howard, you got to say that. Like it's a thing. You have to say that. But yeah, I want to get into Ross leaders, which stands for Republic of South Sudan leaders. And so Ross Leaders is a community leadership development organization where the mission is to inspire youth, build strong communities through education, mentorship, and culture, ultimately to help young people become future leaders, right? The organization really focuses on leadership and development, and you work on the sports side of it, right? Like the athletic
I'm
arm.
one of the founders of the organization.
Yeah, one of the founders, and then you also work within like the basketball department,
Yeah, that's mainly
right?
it. Mhm.
Yeah. And so some of your players with So Elite might also participate in Ross Leaders, right?
So Lead is an umbrella of Ross Leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
So
Ross Leaders is the basically the whole organization, and then there's different umbrellas that fall under it, and So Lead's one of them.
okay, but you might have like some of the same kids that might, be playing for So Elite or in that program, and then they're also involved in Ross Leaders. Does that
Yeah,
happen?
yeah,
Okay.
it's all one organization.
Okay. Okay. All right. And so let's see here. When I was just reading about it, like Ross Leaders and then So Elite, I like to think of it kind of as like So Elite builds the athlete, and then Ross Leaders builds the person behind the athlete. Is that how you
Exactly.
categorize it? Okay.
It,
Okay. And so it gives the youth like multiple layers of support by combining sports plus education plus leadership, right?
mm.
So how did that connection come about between So Elite and Ross Leader?
So my other co-founder, Jacob Hydra, he's from
Mm-hmm.
Omaha, Nebraska. Omaha has the largest South Sudanese population, and at the time, this was right before COVID 2019. We both had the same mentor, and our mentor connected us and was like, "Hey, you guys are both doing something very similar in your own communities. I'm helping out South Sudanese kids in your area, so we'd love for y'all to connect." And me and him connected and talked for a
Mm-hmm.
while, and then around COVID, me and him met up with a bunch of our kids and had like a mini camp, and from there on, that was kind of like the birth of Ross Leaders and Soul Lead being into one.
Okay. Okay. So you all basically combined it. Okay. So
Yeah,
when I was reading about it, I was thinking that you have like Ross Leaders and then like So Elite. It's kind of like an extension, but the athletic part, but you all just kind of came together and just made it one, basically.
yeah, made it one. But you're right,
Okay.
though. It is a connection. It is like an extended branch of Ross Leaders.
Okay. Okay. Um, so there are a lot of athletes that may excel in sports, but say they might be lacking in like character development. Why did you feel that it was so important for So Elite to have that connection with Ross Leaders? Like, um, why is it important for athletes to have the type of foundation that Ross Leaders provides? Because I know me personally, that's great that if I meet someone and you could shoot a basketball, that's wonderful, right? But at the end of the day, I'm a big character person, and I know I feel like a lot of people are. Like who you are really matters. So why would you say it was important for your athletes, at So Elite to have that type of foundation that Ross Leaders provides?
Because I think when you're an athlete, I think a lot of people use that to identify who you are. And I think being an athlete doesn't define who we are. At the end of the day, we're all human beings.
Mm-hmm.
We're all individuals as a person. And I think sometimes helping someone understand that their identity is more than just basketball or football or whatever sport they're
Mm-hmm.
playing, can help them go a long way. Because with sports, it's a very short career. Most athletes finish playing their career, if you go professionally, play long term, around their 30s, and then they typically don't play past their 30s. So once you're done playing, if you don't learn to build an identity
Yeah.
um, at a young age, you'll lose yourself because you'll retire and you won't have basketball no more. You won't know what to do with yourself. So I think it's just important to be able to build a person holistically and kind of help them be able to maneuver through the real world, regardless of what they try to do, whether it's sports or not sports.
Yeah. And I feel like too, like that's a really tough mental battle. Like if you don't have that foundation, because I've read a lot of stories about like athletes really like committing suicide too. And I feel like a lot of it has to do too with like them not knowing maybe who they are. Like if the sport that you're trying to be a professional in, if things aren't going your way, and you've placed all of your identity into this particular sport or being an athlete in this sport, it can make you feel like, okay, what is my purpose? Like, why am I here? And it's really sad, when you read stuff like that. There was an athlete that I read about not too long ago who was not playing basketball, but football in the NFL and was injured, I think still sitting out to injury, and had ended up committing suicide. And it just made me think about how, like, it's so scary, when you think about it, because I wasn't in his head. I don't know what he was thinking, but um, ultimately, like if you have this one goal your whole life and then things don't go that way, it can kind of put you in a very, very dark space. And so I feel like that is something that is very, very important. And it's great that you knew how to navigate, you knew what to do. Did you ever, like, just before you founded So Elite, you, like we talked about, you were in politics, but did you have a little battle with that for a minute? Like, okay, my growing is hurt, basketball's not working out. How did you get through that? Like, did you battle with that a little bit
Yeah, I
before?
think you definitely I think it's once everyone gets a sense of everyone has dreams. Once you get
Mm-hmm.
a sense of reality, and your dream might not be what you live to do for the rest of your life. I think it becomes challenging for anybody. So I definitely had my time period where I've always wanted to go to NBA my whole life, and I realized I wasn't going to go to NBA. And
Mm-hmm.
you go through a little depression phase, but luckily for me, I believe I've always had the right type of mindset. I think people around me have helped me build the right type of mindset. I've always had the right circle around me, so it was easy for me to maneuver through that. But sometimes people don't have that type of circle around them, or sometimes people don't have that type of um, advice and stuff like that. So I think that's why it was important for us to try to prepare our kids for when that time does come, and if it does come. If it doesn't, great. But if it does, at least you're prepared to challenge it.
Yeah, yeah. And injury is something that's part of the game. Like I don't want to make it seem like it's a death sentence. Like,
Yeah.
athletes get injured all the time. But what were some of the things that you did to kind of stay strong through that mentally? Because that's tough. I've seen players, get come off injury and then they start their season and then they get injured all over again. Like that's a really, really tough, like, mental battle. I mean, what advice would you give to, say, as a player who's, injured or going through something like that? I mean, how do they mentally, like, how do you navigate through that?
Definitely faith. I think faith is the biggest thing, whether whatever religion you practice,
Yep.
just having faith in a higher power and understanding that when you are going through hard times that God is there to kind of help you get through whatever. And then if you can, definitely have someone to speak to, whether it's a close friend, whether it's a family member, whether it's your parents.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you get, I think it becomes hard when you're dealing with everything on your own. When you get in a dark space and you're by yourself, I think that's when these negative thoughts kind of take over. But I feel like if you're able to talk through things and you have the right people there for you, uplifting you, then it becomes a lot easier to get through.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like I said, I feel like a lot of it is mental too.
Hmm.
Just staying strong mentally, and isolation is one of the things that can be very bad, you know. So I think
Yeah,
like what you said about just surrounding yourself with people that really care about you and, you know, love and support you is very important. I mean, we all need our space, you know, at
yeah,
times,
for sure.
but it's, you know, very important to not sit in that too long, you know.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I do want to talk about like more about the importance of education. And again, you know, you went to Howard, in Washington D.C., which is an HBCU. What was your experience like going to Howard? How did education kind of help shape you? You know, I mean, I wish I would have went to Howard, but I
No,
went.
it was definitely an amazing experience. Like I tell a lot of people, I could do it all over again. I want to still go to Howard,
Yeah,
just because of the experience of everything that came with it. And I
yeah,
felt like going to HBCU, you have representation, and everyone wants to see you succeed, and people can direct you in the right path. They offer a lot of great internships. You're also around a lot of other students who strive to be successful, and they become successful later on, and that's a great network to build on. So it
yeah,
was good, but education for me, coming from an African household, all they care about is education. But I was one of those kids where
yeah.
I went through a lot of battles through my childhood that kind of like I would say basically influenced me in negative ways or distracted me from my bigger goals. And my
Mhm.
education when I was in high school kind of like went down. I wasn't as focused, and that's part of why I ended up going to junior college was because finishing high school when I graduated, I didn't have the proper GPA to go somewhere and play on a scholarship or anything like that. But once I went JUCO, I obviously became much older and much wiser. So I understood from my first experience of not qualifying that I needed to take my junior college experience serious. And once I did that, obviously I realized I could kind of get into any school I really want to. And I really wanted to go to a HBCU, and I also wanted to go to like a real prestigious HBCU, and that's why I ended up applying to go to Howard, and it all worked out. It was a great experience. Met a lot of great people there, but it has its negatives, of course. Nothing's perfect. You have
Right.
challenges when it comes to administration and financial aid and stuff like that. But I don't think there's any perfect situation in this world. Everything has its ups and downs. You got to deal with what you can deal with. And I enjoyed my time over there for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you definitely landed in the right place with Howard. If you, that's one of the top HBCUs. There are a lot of great people that came out from Howard. What was your experience, while we're on the topic of education and just school, like with JUCO? Now, did you play basketball at your uh, JUCO?
Yeah, I played at my JUCO, so that's why
Okay.
I went there on a scholarship. Academics for me has always been easy as long as I was focused. But
Mm-hmm.
there was times where I wasn't focused and my GPA would go down or I wasn't getting everything I needed to get done. But when I was at JUCO, I think I was very focused because I had bigger goals and I knew I didn't want to go through the process of not being a qualifier again. So
Mm-hmm.
academically, it was easy for me to stay focused, and I was kind of on top of everything, and basically graduated with high honors, and stuff like that. So it was pretty simple.
Yeah. Well, but I want to talk about JUCO a little bit because I feel like, not knocking it, but just from my experiences, I had a friend that had a brother that actually played JUCO, and she told me, you know, he kind of just had like a terrible experience. He really just experienced coaches that, in her words, kind of toyed with his career, and he kind of started to lose his love for basketball. Now, I know that it's still very possible to go from JUCO to like a D1 or even a D2. It's again not a death sentence, but what was your experience like playing JUCO? Because from what I've heard, about it, it can be tough, bouncing around to different ones. And then even every coach is different, not just in JUCO, like at any level. But what was your experience like with that? Like, did you have it? You liked your coach? Like, was it pretty easy for you doing JUCO? Because I've heard some people that did not have a great experience.
Now,
So
JUCOs are very tough because
yeah,
there's not a lot of resources. So it's one of those things where you got to get it how you can. You know what I'm saying? And if you don't have the mindset of I'm gonna get through this by any means, then it's gonna
hmm,
become very challenging because even your coaches, there's not like when you go like to a Division 1 school, there's like
yeah,
4 or 5 coaches, there's like 3 managers,
staff, yeah,
GAs, there's a full staff. At a JUCO,
hmm,
it's typically just the head coach and the assistant coach. So you don't really have a lot of resources, a lot of people to go to. And it's definitely a lot of JUCOs, a lot of good JUCOs. So I went to a very good basketball JUCO. So and a lot of those are in the middle of nowhere. So
hmm,
that can kind of definitely get very isolating. You're in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing to
yeah,
do.
yeah,
So it's definitely very challenging. But I remember having my rough days for sure. The holidays were when it was toughest for me because I remember like Thanksgiving, everyone being home, and me and my roommate were like splitting a Subway sandwich, and I'm on Snapchat at the time, looking at my family. Everyone's cooking, everyone's eating good, and
yeah,
we're away from everyone. It's just me and him in our apartment. So it definitely gets very tough, but I do think it can shape you to become a successful person if you can get through it.
hmm,
Um, but if you can't, then obviously it becomes it's not for everybody. That's one thing I can say for sure.
yeah. What would you say would be the recipe for a JUCO player that's trying to dig himself out of that, the grind? Because it's not. There have been players that have made it out of JUCO. I mean, Jimmy Butler, right? He
Yeah, Jimmy
came
Butler, yeah, with
from
JUCO.
JUCO.
Mhm.
Um, I know there have been others. I don't know all of them off the top of my head, but what advice would you have for, you know, a player that might be in JUCO right now that's trying to come out of that? I know you have to put the numbers up. It's kind of like plain and simple, right?
Yeah, well, I'd say keep the main thing the main thing. So when you're there, remember what your goal is and stay focused
Mhm.
on that. So if you got to live in the gym every day, get better every day, always do whatever you need to do to get to your goal. Just don't lose sight of the goal because you will get challenged. You will deal with some distractions. You will
Mhm.
have limited resources. But if you're one of those people that's very determined and you're like, I'm going to get there by any means, resources, no resources, then you're
Yeah.
going to figure it out and get through it. But my biggest thing would be make sure you're trying to get to your goal.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I heard too about JUCO is there are times where it can be kind of misleading, like with certain schools or coaches, they kind of like sell you a dream in a way. And then you might get there and it ends up being like, oh man, this is not really like what I thought it was going to be. Like, how can players avoid falling into that trap with JUCOs? What would you
I think
say
that's
about?
just basketball in general. I think everyone's always selling you a dream, whether
Yeah.
you're a kid trying to go play on an AAU program, a different high school, a college. I
Hmm.
think everyone's trying to sell what they have to try to get the athlete. My biggest thing would be do as much research as you can on where you want to be, whether
Hmm.
that's online doing research, asking your peers, asking people you know, asking different coaches, asking
Yeah.
players that went there about their experience. But just do as much research as you can before you get there because you don't want to go into it blinded.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, clearly with you transferring to Howard, I mean, and coming out of that, personally, I feel like that was a great decision because, like I said, Howard is a great school. Um, so let's get into, I have here with you being from South Sudan and then attending school here in the U.S. Why is mentorship so imperative for international students like students from South Sudan? Because just in your experience in attending school here, I'm sure, I know you mentioned you had a mentor, but why would you say it's so important for those type of students to have like a mentor here?
I think mentorship is important for every kid, but
Mm-hmm.
for international or immigrants in general, I think it's
Yeah.
important because 99% of the time, I think their parents don't know what's going on because they don't understand the culture. And if you have a mentor that can guide you or teach you certain things that can help maneuver your journey and help it be an easier path, then I think that's very helpful. But obviously, not everyone has that, and I think sometimes when you don't have that, you can basically like go into the wrong things or divert into the wrong path, and that can be very difficult at times. But having a mentorship there to pick you up when times are hard, or to teach you right from wrong, or to kind of prepare
Yeah.
you for real life situations can be very helpful.
Yeah. And I agree with what you said. Like, it is obviously very important for every child to have, mentorship. But I feel like, especially with international students who are coming over here with literally no one or may not know anyone, no family, no friends, I just feel like having that support system, even if it's just one person, is like crucial, And
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I think, yeah, that's one of the reasons why I think it's great that, you're involved in these programs. I know you said you came to the States when you were about 6 years, well, no, you said 7 or 8.
7 or 8, yeah.
Yeah, because when I talked to you, I know you said 6, and then the other video, it was so okay, 7 or 8, 7 or 8.
Yeah, I was born in '93. I came here 2000, so I was,
Okay,
yeah,
so you
7.
were still pretty young.
Yeah.
So before we, move into the next thing, what would you have to say to students or student athletes who may be in their like teens or their 20s who are just now arriving to the States? Because it can be hard, leaving your home, a place you're so familiar with, and then going from that to a place that's so new, but there's better opportunity. But again, you're here alone, you don't really know anyone. What advice would you have for them?
I
Like,
definitely think it could be more challenging coming in here, coming to another country older. I think
yeah,
coming at a young age is a lot easier because you can adapt. You still have your
yeah,
whole childhood to go through, and kind of like make friends and figure all that out. But coming older, I think is a lot harder. But
yep,
one of my biggest things is like just take advantage of the opportunity. You know what I'm saying? Because there are a lot of people that wish to be in our position or in my position. I know there's a lot of kids in South Sudan or other third world countries that wish they were in the U.S. So just being here, take advantage of the opportunity and try to make something out of it instead of just wasting it.
yeah. I feel like you coming here, at 7 or 8 kind of made it a little bit easier because you were still young, you
Mm.
know. But did you still feel the challenges of like just being, here in the States away from your home country, or you didn't really like feel it because you were so young? Was that?
I don't think I felt it because I was very young at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Obviously, you deal with challenges coming from another country, but I wouldn't say it was something that I really kind of like felt or really was like going
Yeah,
through.
yeah.
Yeah,
You were like 8, 7, 8. All you
yeah,
had to do was play Legos with somebody,
yeah,
and y'all
exactly. I was
were
getting going to the park, running around.
playing.
So,
Right.
yeah,
But still, again, that doesn't take away from, your knowledge of the experience. I'm sure
mm,
you would still be a great mentor for somebody from South Sudan who's, coming here, doesn't know anyone. What it is.
yeah,
Um, so I want to talk about lastly, Rise Management, um, which is the sports and talent agency. Um, so for those who don't know, of course. So Rise Management is a sports and talent agency that empowers clients to thrive in both sports and entertainment. The focus is to give opportunity to underrepresented athletes, support players from African or immigrant backgrounds, to mentor players beyond just contracts while building a global basketball network. You also mentioned that you hope to expand the agency to not just sports, but to also manage other talents like models. I've seen the South Sudanese models here, and they're just like chef kiss, gorgeous. So models, musical artists, basically not just sports, like also
Yeah,
entertainment.
yeah.
Um, and so let's start with, why did you want to aid in creating an agency like Rise Management? Because I know there are other people involved. Um, so what made you want to be a part of something like an agency like this?
Excuse me, sorry.
You're
But
good.
with Rise, I know with part of having Ross leaders or so elite was because
Hmm.
we felt like there was a lot of not a lot of representation in the field and like in the mentorship space.
Hmm.
So Rise was very similar. We felt like we had a lot of kids that were growing, going to college, finishing college, getting into whatever career they were getting into, and I think they were underrepresented in those fields as well. So one of our things was to start up a management company where we can focus on different fields and be able to guide people from South Sudan or other places around the world, honestly, just to kind of like guide them through that and make sure that they have representation in that space as well.
Yeah, yeah. And two, that kind of leads into my next question about the importance of like African or immigrant players to have representation with an agency like Rise Management, because you all have that cultural understanding, that background. Um, it's relatable. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And I feel like
yeah, for
that's very
sure.
important when it comes to representation. Um, so, in your words, why would you feel that that's important for African or immigrant players to have representation with an agency like Rise Management?
Definitely because of representation and having someone that comes from where
Yeah.
you come from, understand what's going on. Just kind of like share a story with you. Wenyin Gabriel was obviously like a brother to me. Well, I remember when he was going through his process of like going to Kentucky to play basketball and then going to the NBA. He didn't really, he kind of did everything by himself and had to figure
Mhm.
everything out on his own just because his family or his mom and dad weren't educated in that space. And so he was kind of figuring everything out, everything by himself. So like one of our things was to try to make sure that none of the kids who come from where we come from have to go through that again. And whether they go play professionally somewhere, whether they get
Yeah.
into any type of professional career space, that they have people to lean on that can help guide them through that, even as adults.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that's so important because like there's so many wrong turns that you can make when you're trying to handle something like that on your own, especially being like an international player. So I feel like honestly, an agency like the one you have is crucial. Like it's very important for someone like you mentioned, Winyan, who's not from the US, and needs kind of like that guidance, and to have like representation with an agency that understands where you come from, like I feel like that's amazing. So like what are some of the ways that Rise Management works to foster in the success of its talent? Because I know you mentioned that you work with third party agencies. Can you talk a little bit about that, like when it comes to NIL deals, name, image, likeness, branding, and marketing? Um, Kind of break that down a little bit, how you all work with like the third party agencies. What exactly do you all do to make sure that the talent is successful?
So at Rise, we manage a lot of college athletes.
Mm-hmm.
That's through the NIL space right now. Obviously, the NIL space is growing. It's gotten a lot of exposure. A lot of people put a lot of focus on it. So what
Mm-hmm.
we do is try to help our college athletes maneuver through that space, whether it's them negotiating contracts with their schools, whether it's them trying to get brand deals. We do a lot of that, but we also have professional athletes that are in Rise, like Wenyin himself or
Mm-hmm.
Adonis Arms and Christian, who's playing overseas. So with those guys, they're also with their own agencies. So like
Mm-hmm.
Wenyin is signed with Wasserman, Adonis is signed with Clutch, but we deal with a lot of their management stuff to kind of make sure that they have someone there to communicate with them on behalf of their agencies
Yeah.
so they're able to focus on what they want to do, which is playing basketball and stuff like that. So we try to
Yeah.
manage a lot of their day to day, making sure that they have whatever they need in order to obviously kind of just focus for them to focus on basketball.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I feel like too, like with the NIL deals, the, these NIL deals have some of these guys literally it's almost as if they're already professional. Like I've heard stories. There's a lot of money, if you're getting involved in the right deals and stuff like that. What's been your experience, with like the whole NIL deal? Because I feel like it's something that should have happened a long time ago. College sports generates billions of dollars, and I
Mhm.
feel like it took forever. I feel like the players should have been getting paid a long time ago, with all the
No,
money that
100%.
yeah, with all the money that college sports generates, it was long overdue. But now you're seeing college athletes getting paid left and right for, whether it's like a deal with, for example, like Gatorade or a shoe deal or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, what's been your experience, with like navigating those type of contracts or deals? I think it's a great thing. I mean,
Yeah,
and
no, it's definitely great. It's been very interesting. Also,
mhm.
we have athletes within Rise that are making a whole bunch of money,
Yeah.
almost more than some professional players. We have athletes that are making minimal money.
Mhm.
But I think one thing that I really like about it, I think it gives athletes an opportunity to change their lives and change their family lives at a young age, especially
Yeah.
in an industry where the NCAA does make billions of dollars, and they're making billions of dollars off the back of their athletes. So I think it's
Yeah.
only fair that these athletes are also able to benefit off of all the income that they're bringing in. And
Yeah.
obviously, right now is a little chaotic in the NIL space because I think it's new. That's one, and then two, they're also trying to figure out a bunch of rules to implement to for it to make sense. Because right now it's kind of like the Wild Wild West,
Mhm.
where there are really no rules. There is no cap space. Um, Kids are able to transfer whatever they want, which I think all makes sense. But I
Yeah.
know they're definitely trying to implement rules to kind of like make sure that it all makes more sense. But I like it because we have kids that come from nothing that have been able to change their lives and their families' lives in the
Yeah.
last couple of years, and I love seeing that. I feel like that's what I do this for. Is I want
Mhm.
these kids to be successful, and I want them to be able to change their lives and their families' lives. And as long as they're able to do that and they're able to continue making money in college, I think it's a win for everybody. Also, like
Yeah.
not everyone gets to the NBA or to the professional space, so I like that there is an opportunity for them to kind of make a lot of money in this space now while they're here.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's awesome too. And it kind of honestly leaves you with like the question of, say you have a college athlete who is in college and they're making all this money with NIL deals and stuff. It kind of almost makes you pause in a way before you get to the professional level. Cause I feel like it used to be where like players were in a rush, like, oh my gosh, I want to get to the NBA, like that's the
Yeah,
goal, and some of them even leave school early, to
yeah,
just to get to the NBA. But now I feel like it's kind of switched where it's like, oh my gosh, like I can chill a little bit. Like I'm in college, I'm making all this money, getting these brand deals. Why not stay in college and just develop, make the money? The NBA isn't going anywhere. What would be your take on that? Like, I mean, is it smarter
no,
to kind of just stay in college and develop, make the
I
money,
think
and yeah.
I think it depends on who you are. But I
Mm-hmm.
do think it's made college sports a lot better. I think, especially college basketball right now, it's at an all-time high. Just the
Yeah.
level of talent in college basketball is super high. Even the
Yeah.
viewership on TV, like people are watching these games at a lot higher level than they were before. I think these games are a lot more interesting because there are NBA players that should be in the NBA that are
Yeah.
currently still staying and playing. So I think it's benefiting the NCAA a lot. But I also do think that with that happening, it's also giving kids time to mature and make sure
Mhm.
that they're prepared to go to the NBA or the professional space and kind of not rushing the process. I know one thing we have conversations with our athletes about It's like if you're gonna go to NBA and be a first round pick, because like in the NBA, typically most first round picks have a guaranteed contract. Most
Mm-hmm.
second round picks have a non guaranteed contract. So if you're gonna go second round and get a non guaranteed contract, I think it's better that you stay in college and make the money that you can guaranteed and try to raise your stock so that the following year you can be a first round pick. But just having those options now to where people in the past didn't have those options, I think it's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And how does that work for people who don't know? If you're second round, what exactly does that mean? You know, if you get hurt or something, they could just let you go. What how do those type of contracts usually break down for people who
Yeah,
don't know?
non guaranteed contract means that if something was to happen and the team had to let you go, that you won't be
That's
getting
it.
all your money.
Yeah.
But if you have a guaranteed contract, is obviously as long as we're in the contract, if you do what you're supposed to do, but the team still releases you, you'll get
Yeah.
paid all your money.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is safe. It's kind of like a safe route for most athletes. I think whether you play in the NBA or overseas, you want to try to get a guaranteed contract if you can, because
Hmm.
you never know what happens. Sometimes you can get hurt. Things can happen that can like derail the path of where you're trying to go. So just having that safety net and having a guaranteed contract can kind of be very beneficial.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit about that too with the contracts and things like that. But before I forget, when you mentioned college sports, you know, and being on the rise, I thought of the girls too. I had
100%.
yeah, I read an article because I know So Elite has a women's division, like for the younger
Yep.
girls. I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
forget about them.
Mm-hmm.
So I had read an article a few days ago, and it was just talking about how women's sports has grown so much, and they literally just signed some deal where WNBA players are going to be getting paid a lot more. And I don't
Yep.
want to quote all the numbers because I don't want to mess it up. I don't know them off the top of my head, but just to give you an idea, like for example, there could have been maybe like a starting salary of say like 200, 300K, right? And with this new deal, that's jumped to like a million. And so talk a little bit about, you know, the women's division. Like I'm kind of going backwards because I just realized we didn't really talk about the girls, but with So Elite and the girls, you know, like
Yeah.
how is that with, you know,
So with our women's division, it's ran by
yeah.
Achille Tack and Hawal Jack, and
Hmm.
they're both two women that played college basketball themselves. Two
Hmm.
amazing women that do a great job of developing our young ladies to become women and kind of dominating the space that they want to get into. So we've had a lot
Yeah,
of success with our girls going to college and having successful careers, and just obviously as you know, like women's sports is growing. Even if you
it
see
is.
college basketball and the
Mhm.
last couple of years with girls like Angel Reese and Caitlin
Yeah,
Clark, like these are women in the space that were able to dominate the space and make a lot
yep,
of money in the space to where prior to NIL, they really didn't have that opportunity. And that's
yeah,
one thing I like about college right now is obviously now with going to the WNBA, they're passing some rules to where our woman can make more money.
mhm,
Where prior to before they weren't making as much, but
yeah,
there were women in college making a lot more money than women in the WNBA, which is why some women would kind of like take advantage of the NCAA space. But that's why I like the NIL space, especially for women, because they're able to thrive in it and make a lot more money, and as opposed to where had they been
yeah,
in the WNBA. But obviously now with the WNBA growing and stuff like that, it's also good to kind of see them getting what they deserve as well.
yeah. It's amazing. Like I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it. And those players you mentioned, like Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, I mean, it's just awesome just seeing the growth. I was actually listening to an interview with Flage from LSU. And she
Mhm.
was just talking about, you know, like just what an amazing college experience she had at LSU. And she's actually getting ready to declare, you know, for the WNBA draft. But she's a prime example of that as well. Just making the money in college, enjoying that college experience, really developing, training, saving her money because she talked about that too. And I think that's very important. Um, But one of the things that she's also into, she's a rapper. She does it all. And I know you mentioned like with Rise, you don't want to just have like athletes, you're looking to have possibly models and maybe musical artists. I think that's another thing that's so important too, is like when we talked about, how athletes tend to like kind of just put their eggs in that one basket, and it's like,
Yeah,
I'm a professional athlete. But nowadays I feel like it's like, no, like you can literally do it all if you want. And so I think that move that you're trying to make with expanding the agency to not just basketball, but to other talent as well is amazing. Because and two, like even back in the day, like Kobe rapped a little bit, Shaq, rapped a little
yeah, for
bit.
sure.
So I think that's a major move. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like what made you want to expand the agency like that? Because I do, like I mentioned, I see a lot of South Sudanese models, and like I said, they're killing it. So just talk a little bit about that really quick too before we move on. Just like, expanding the agency. Um, because again, like I said with Flaja, she's not just a basketball player, she's a rapper, and she's actually like rapping. Like she's done stuff with Lil Wayne, like it's not just one lane
Hmm.
nowadays. A lot of
Yeah,
these athletes. And so can you talk a little bit about that?
yeah, no, 100%. I know. Coming from where I come from, I feel like a lot of South Sudanese youth and even
Hmm.
adults are dominating in a lot of different spaces. And I
Yeah.
know when we talked, me, Jacob, Mike, Wenyin, when all of us talked about Rise, we wanted to be a complete talent agency, representing, giving representation to people in all different fields. Obviously, we started with basketball because that was the space we're very familiar with. And
Yeah.
obviously, we've grown to where we have a football division now as well. But our
Nice.
goal is to have a modeling division, um, have all types of division, an entertainment division for artists, actors, all that, because we know there's people in that space that also need proper representation. So
Yes.
we're kind of looking forward to it. Obviously, I think it'll happen slowly. We're not rushing to make it happen just because we don't want to just be in those fields. We want to have the proper tools and proper knowledge to be in that space, so we can
Mhm.
also try to dominate that space as well.
Yeah, yeah, and you have talent, like I said, athletes that may be able to do all of it.
Mhm.
Not just play basketball. You might have an athlete that can also act, or you
Yeah.
know, rap, or
Mm,
whatever. So I
mm,
think that's awesome.
yeah.
Um, so let's talk about Wenyin a little bit, because, and hopefully, if he's watching this, we can get him on here next. But he's one of the founders, one of the key founders of Rise Management. For those who don't know, Wenyin is an Olympian and has played in the NBA as well as overseas, and even represented South Sudan in men's basketball at the 2024 Paris Olympics. And I remember watching that, and that was a statement. Okay. For those who didn't know, they knew after that. Okay. That was amazing. And so he brings that real player experience into the agency because he understands like the path from refugee, high school, college, and then to pro, right?
Mhm.
And he's also one of your best friends. You had mentioned that too. So talk a little bit about that relationship with Winyan and the role that he plays in Rise Management.
And obviously, we grew up together in the same city
Mm-hmm.
since we were kids. One year came to the U.S. A little before I did, but so we've known each other basically since I got to the U.S. But he's been a
And you're
part
both
of my
from Manchester, right?
yeah, both from Manchester.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go
So
ahead.
he's been a part of my journey since So Elite. He's actually given a lot to So Elite in different ways, whether it's showing up for the kids, whether it's providing resources. He's been there from the beginning till now and has helped kind of mentored a lot of our kids himself. A lot of our kids have direct access to him for questions, or he'll show up
Mhm.
to their stuff they have on. So like even our kids that came through the program that are older now, if they have camps and stuff going on, one is like always excited to go support them and be there
Yeah.
for them. So that's always been big. He's always been a person that's been about the community and giving back to the community. And
Yeah.
he's a person that didn't have resources growing up or didn't have the proper guidance or proper representation. And I think that's why for him he wants to give back and kind of be that person that's been through the journey, been through the process, that knows what it's like and kind of educate these kids on that. But with Rise, obviously he's been there from the beginning of that too. And with him being a professional player, I think it's great because he's in it right now. He's in the moment.
Yeah.
He's been through it. He's been to where these kids are trying to go, whether it's in the NBA, whether it's overseas. So he can give a lot of advice on it, and he
Yeah.
obviously has a lot of knowledge on it. But he's
Mhm.
been even with Rise right now. Like he's always thinking of ways to grow within our talent space, and for us, I'm thankful for that because he's obviously still in his career,
Yeah.
so obviously he's still busy with that, but the fact that he makes enough time to be there for the kids and for the youth is amazing. Like people don't know the amount of work he does. Like he's done camps back home. We've built courts back home. We're working on building another court and trying to raise money to build an indoor arena. In South Sudan, we don't have no indoor gym.
Hmm.
Every gym's outdoor. So
Yeah.
we're coming up with a campaign right now to try to build our first indoor arena. So, and he's a big part of that as well. So he's kind of,
Yeah.
I think he takes a lot of pride in where he comes from and he
Yeah.
cares a lot about the youth. And I think it's amazing because a lot of these kids do look up to him.
That's awesome. That is amazing. And he really, I'm sure he really does have a huge impact on just the agency because also when I was listening in on another interview where you were talking about a camp that you all had did and you all were preparing for like 100 to 200 kids and then it ended up being like 400 to
Yeah.
500. And so just to hear that was just amazing. Like it really goes to show how many kids I'm sure look up to him. And just because you had said, he was kind of like the first player to really come back and do a camp. And so I think that's awesome having someone like him a part of the agency, you know. So yeah, that's awesome. Um, but I want to talk about some of the challenges that international players face when it comes to representation. I feel like this is something that we just have to talk about because obviously, with this being an agency, you know what goes on. So there is a kind of like an extra layer of difficulty that might come compared to US based players, such as, limited knowledge of like NCAA eligibility rules, agent regulations, contract structures, especially when it comes to overseas, that might make it easier to fall into traps like signing bad deals, trusting the wrong people, or even like missing opportunity. It can be like a very complex system, right? So,
Hmm.
how does Rise Management help its players to navigate and avoid making those mistakes? Because it can
Um,
happen. So,
I think for us, like our advantage is we're a holistic talent management company. So
mhm.
we have lawyers that our kids are able to work with. We have accountants and
Oh, that's
firms that
great.
our kids are able to work with, just getting them through their taxes and stuff like that. We have resources to some mental health stuff because we know our kids deal with that. Partners that we also work with. So we
Yeah,
try to kind of give our athletes a holistic approach into the real world. So not only are we dealing with their contracts, but we try to make sure we're there for them as a complete person. And obviously, we have personal relations with our athletes as well. So we're
yeah,
always trying to go see them and spend time with them ourselves. So that's why I call it more of a family environment because we're super close to all of our athletes, and we
yeah.
try to be there for them every step of the way through whatever they go through.
I love that. I love that. And I want to touch on too, like these overseas deals,
Mhm.
because you were joking too about a story you heard about a player that said he had signed an overseas deal and it was like $75. Uh, what was it? $75 a week or
Yeah, it was
something
like
like
I think it was $75 every 2 weeks.
every 2 weeks?
Yeah.
That is insane. Like
Yeah, it was
how?
when it was like because I was this was like I was coaching at a prep school and I remember he came into the office to
Mhm,
talk to someone and he was talking about the opportunity he was given and it was like a 3-on-3 league.
mhm.
Um, somewhere. I think it was somewhere in Asia that he was going to go to, and it was like $75 every 2 weeks, and I just didn't know how he's going to make a living like that. So.
Yeah, yeah. How do you all stop the players from like when it comes to those like overseas deals and stuff? Does that tend to happen a lot? Or where the contracts can be a little bit misleading when it comes to overseas, or because I remember too talking with a guy a while ago. I had did another interview and he was playing overseas and he kind of just like took it into his own hands, and I guess because he didn't have like an agency like Rise, right, to kind
Mhm.
of support him, but he kind of like took it into his own hands and just started navigating it himself.
Mhm.
Um, but what kind of deals usually like come about when it comes to overseas? Does that tend to happen a lot where you can easily like fall into these bad contracts
Yeah,
when it comes?
you could definitely always fall into a bad contract if you don't have the right
Yeah.
representation. You know what I'm saying? And with these
Does that
contracts, I think the most challenging
happen
part, yeah, it happens
overseas?
often, and I think the most
Okay.
challenging part is the language, because some of these kids aren't educated on these contracts, so I think the language can kind of mess them up, and they won't understand them. Or sometimes they hear the money and don't even go over the contract or will sign it themselves. So having representation, I think, is definitely very important because
Yeah.
you want someone that has the knowledge and the experience and the understanding of the space you're getting into.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, because I mean, yeah, I personally, I feel like once you sign on the dotted line, I mean, you're kind of it's tough to get out of that type of thing. I was
Mhm.
always told you always read it all before you just
Yeah.
sign, and so I feel like yeah, it is important to have that representation. And two, again, if you don't have that mentor, if you don't have an agency like Rise, it can be easy to fall into that trap because you're like, oh, okay, this is money. Let me just sign. I'm going to be getting paid, and
Yeah.
then realize, okay, this really isn't what I thought it was, and in some cases, you actually end up being underpaid.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's great that you all make sure to look out for things like that. Um, and so we're just about done here. I feel like there's just like so many questions. I feel like you're like a basketball genius. So like there's so
Nah.
many different things I can ask you, but as far as like the cultural background of Rise Management, um, you and Winnie, you're both South Sudanese refugees. So you have, like we said earlier, that cultural understanding, and other South Sudanese athletes can easily relate to you and relate to that, right? It kind
Hmm.
of builds a sense of trust.
Hmm.
Um, so why would you say it's so important to have like that relationship of trust when it comes to representation? Because I feel like with an agency, like you can have someone representing you and you might like them, you might be cool with them or whatever, but it's like, do you really trust this person? Is there really that strong relationship of trust when it comes to representation? Because even when I was in the journalism program, I had interviewed two players, former retired players, for the Magic, Bo Outlaw and Nick Anderson. And one of the things that they had said was like, know how to manage your money for yourself.
Hmm.
Like it can be tough to navigate that if you have someone representing you that you really don't trust. Um, so can you just talk a little bit about, like again, with both of you being from South Sudan and then you having clients from South Sudan, um, for example, like a South Sudanese player that might be looking for representation like Rise, um, why do you all hold so much value in that relationship of trust? Like when it comes to representation, why is that so important? Obviously, it's very important, but if you could just talk a little bit about, just them again, a South Sudanese player, coming to an agency like Rise, where they can literally be represented by someone who looks like them, understands where they come from. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think it's definitely important. I think that representation is important because we've been through what you've been through, so we
Mm-hmm.
understand the journey you're going on. We've also dealt with our parents not understanding what's going on and having to go through things ourselves. So we can I think it's just being able to relate on all different aspects of the journey you're going on along with what we've been through. I think that's the most important thing for me personally. Like,
Yeah.
you don't got to worry about someone not knowing or someone not understanding you and who you are and where you come from and what you're going through. I think just having that, I think, takes a lot out of your shoulders, being able to have someone that represents you that can relate to all of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome. And I 100% agree. That's exactly what I wanted you to touch on. So lastly, just to kind of end it with Rise, and that's really just about it. We covered a lot of stuff, but when it comes to, again, international players, they don't just need an agent; they need a trusted network, legal understanding, cultural support, and really long-term guidance. Right? What is the last thing that you want people to know about Rise Management? And then after that, if you could just drop your socials so that they know how to connect with Rise, and even So Elite, for anyone watching that is interested in joining your program. After that, if you could just drop your socials just so that they know how to follow.
One thing that's common across all of our organizations, whether it's Ross Leaders, Soul Lead, and Rise, is it's a
Mm-hmm.
family environment. You know what I'm saying? So you're here with people that care about your well-being, people that want to see you succeed, people that are willing to do everything they can to make sure you succeed and do well, people that have your back through the ups and downs, whether it's on court or off the court. I just think having that type of security can help you go a long way in life. So that's one thing we
Yeah.
really stand on is being able to be a family, being able to be there for our athletes, and being able to support them through everything they go through. So that's one thing we really stand on and represent and love about ourselves. And you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter at Arise MGT, Soul Lead at Soul Lead B-Ball, um, what else? Ross Leaders at Ross Leaders. You can go to our website, rossleaders.com. You can go to
Mm-hmm.
our website, risemgt.com. So we're everywhere. Feel free to join us. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And we look forward to continuing growing and
And
becoming
you can't
successful.
leave yourself out, Majak. What's your
Yeah, you can
IG?
follow my Instagram at Majak, Majak, Wenyin, Wenyin 12.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I just want to thank you so much, again, for taking the time to do this. I feel like I got a lot out of you, but it's just never ending when it comes to sports and basketball. But obviously, you're someone that has a lot of knowledge when it comes to all of this. So I just appreciate you taking the time to share, and talk about your experiences. And I guess we'll close it out with a toast to you.
No,
Episode
I
2,
appreciate you. Thank you
Majak
for thank you for
Wenyin.
thank you for hosting me. I really appreciate it, and
Of
you did an
course.
amazing job with all
Thank
the
you.
questions and doing your research and everything like that. So it was a great interview. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And we'll be in touch. Like I said, if there's anybody else, that you think would be great to have on here, let me know. But again, Majak Wenyin, y'all.